Hey guys, I'm Sarah Beth. Today I want to share a technique with you that I found to be very powerful in all of my meditation practices, and it's called the labeling technique. I didn't make it up. I learned it from a movie called the Mindfulness movie, which I'll link down below. This labeling technique is something that you can use in all styles of meditation. No matter what you're doing in meditation, thoughts are going to come and go, and that happens. That's even a part of meditation, I'll say, because meditation isn't about having a completely silent mind, but instead to recognize when thoughts come in and to stop that thought in its track and come right back to your breath, or come right back to your mantra, or come right back to whatever your tool is to be present. The idea is when a thought comes in and you stop it in its tracks, that you're not judging the thought or the fact that you had the thought. You're not attaching to the thought or the feeling or the emotion, but instead observing it. Oh, thought, that's a thought. Or, oh, that's a feeling. And then coming right back to your breath or your mantra or your mala meditation or your moving meditation, whatever it is that you're doing. So this labeling technique is to take it just maybe a step further. And this might work for some of you and it might not work for some of you. Just take what works for you and forget the rest, okay? When you're meditating, no matter what it is that you're doing to meditate, when a thought comes in and you observe that thought, like you're observing your breath, and a little thought comes in, or like inner monologue happens, and you go, oh, that's a thought, or oh, that's an emotion. You label it. For example, for me, I have a little bit of anxiety that I cope with, and the way that I cope with this anxiety is through planning and writing lists and making notes and having calendars everywhere. And in my mind, I've recognized that part of coping with anxiety is like planning internally. Wherever I am, I'm not actually there, I'm planning something else. And so it's through this labeling technique that I've caught myself while I'm meditating, and I'd say, oh, that's planning. And then, oh, that's planning. For a long time, the majority of those thoughts was planning. And it was just really interesting because the more often you recognize your thoughts and you recognize the actual labels of what your thoughts are, you'll start to see patterns. And when you see patterns, it's much easier to actually break them. Planning was just something that I kept going back to, or like I kept recognizing that my mind was going back to, but there's other things that can come in. Like you might have a feeling come in, like frustration that you can't find silence in your meditation. And instead of like going with that frustration and feeling that frustration and accepting and being a part of that frustration, you just recognize it and you say, oh, that's frustration. Set it aside. It could be, oh, that's judging. Set it aside. And try not to get lost in the labeling. Like I have to find the perfect label to get rid of that thought. No, just go to like the most basic root label that you can give that thought, whatever it is. The majority of the time, the thoughts that come in might be negative. It might be like negative labels that you come up with. And don't judge that if that's the case, but just know that, sometimes it's the negative stuff that we don't know how to deal with, so we harbor instead. And that's the kind of stuff that might come up during our meditation. That's why it's so beneficial to meditate and to use this technique, because instead of saying like, that's anger, and I feel anger now, you say, oh, that's anger. Set it aside. And you're not pushing it down. You're just, oh, that's what that is. Okay. Like you can deal with that later. You can deal with that when the time is right. But right now, all you have within this present moment is your breath or your mantra or your mala. If you find yourself having inner dialogues, like you're fighting with someone and like, oh, if they say this, then I'm going to say that. And then if this happens, then I'm going to do that. Then this is going to be extremely powerful for you to stop that in its tracks, because that's not healthy. Instead, to recognize what's happening, give it a label, set it aside, come right back. And the more you can practice presence in the present, the more you can be present in the present. So if that confrontation does end up happening, you're not coming up with all these like, well, shows you, no, you might even be so present that you have that gap between stimulus and response. And so says something so crazy or so offensive or so, they start acting all whatever, they take the level down low. You don't have to go to that level. Just act from your true self and be your true self. And it's so much easier to do when you have that presence and that mindfulness in your life. Try to apply this labeling technique to your meditations, to your yoga and your day-to-day life, and let me know what you think. Place your comments, your thoughts, your questions in the comment section underneath this video. Make sure that you open up the information section of this video for more information and links, including the mindfulness movie that I mentioned. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys next week. Bye. Subscribe to my channel for new uploads every Friday, including health videos, yoga videos, meditation videos, and vlogs. Stay up to date with daily posts on my Facebook and Instagram. Come say hi.